From the center of the universe, now in its 7th season covering your 19-time Grey Cup champion Toronto Argonauts, it's the X's and Argos podcast with Argos color analyst Ben Grant and Coach JB.
Welcome to the X's and Argos pregame walkthrough, brought to you by Something in the Water Brewing. My name is Ben Grant, joined as always by JB, and we're here to get you set for the 2025 Labor Day Classic with your 3-8 Toronto Argonauts in Hamilton to take on the division-leading Hamilton Tiger Cats. We had a lot of stuff to talk about today, probably the biggest or busiest week all season long in terms of transactions. There's a ton of stuff this week. Toronto signed 4 exciting players, including 2024 East All-Star Makai Polk. We'll talk about those guys and what they can add to the team. Plus, they released a couple of players, including Jordan Williams. Mark Milton, the former starting halfback for the last year plus, was traded to Ottawa. We'll get into that. 2 quarterbacks were added to Toronto's negotiations list, and we'll kind of look at that as to whether or not there's any reason for concern there, signing a high-profile quarterback and adding a couple other guys to their negotiation list. That's interesting. Plus, we'll get into all our usual stuff like Pick 6, our game preview, our injury report, OCDC, One Thing, Put Me Down for 20, and Challenge Flag. All of that and more coming up on this episode of the X's and Argos podcast. JB, I love the beer at Something in the Water Brewing. There's a great selection always. They try different stuff too, which is really fun year round. It's not always the same stuff. They have their classics too, but I love the seasonal stuff that they try out. And I thought I would tell you my top 5 Something in the Water beers. So if you've been down to Something in the Water and you've tried Longboat, you've tried some other things, and you're like, well, what should I try next? Here are my top 5 go-tos. And you can find them all right now at Something in the Water. Number 5, Pancake Bay's Sweet Brunch Stout. This was the second best stout on the planet. They got an award for that, and so you got to check that one out if you're a stout fan. Number 4, Moonlight Beach Lager. This is just a crisp, clean lager. If you're into lagers, you will love it. Number 3, Tortuga Pale Ale, which you can actually find at the LCBO as well. Hoppiness without that bitterness that sometimes goes along with hoppy beers. This is a really nice one, Tortuga. Number 2, Liberty's Farm to Glass Pilsner. JB, I know that's one of your favorites.
Delicious.
Yeah, it's a really good beer, made with local ingredients, so that's cool too. And number 1, Longboat Hazy Session IPA. If you haven't tried the new Longboat, you got to try it. It was the beer made for you, for fans of the Double Blue. Get on down after practice at Lamport Stadium, before the game at BMO Field. Check them out at Something in the Water Brewing. All right, JB, let's get into it. We got a ton of stuff to go through today. We'll fly through it here. So the lead story, Makai Polk signed through 2026. Surprised that he's back this soon. What's he going to add to the club? What's your immediate thought on Makai being back in Double Blue?
Not surprised. I didn't think. I thought he was the one most likely to come back between, with the guys who went down. I thought that he, look, he's very talented, but there are certain measurables that the NFL looks for. And he didn't really have the measurables to make a squad, I didn't think. However, he's still an elite athlete, and I think an amazing addition to the CFL. I think he's a superb CFL receiver. I'm really excited to have him back. I mean, you can tell the team's reaction. He's a terrific injection of talent and youth to that wide receiver room. It is potentially a real turning point, I believe, with an offense that's already doing well. So he doesn't have to do a ton of heavy lifting, just kind of plug him in. And with Coxie potentially out for a little bit, it's great timing.
Yeah, well, we'll go into that and how this was going to play out with Coxie's injury. But also, we'll look a little later into, this is a Pick 6 teaser, but we're going to look a little later into what you do when Coxie comes back. And you've got all these great receivers, but in the meantime, you've got to check out that video that you just referenced, JB. It's on the Argos social media. Makai walking back into the room and seeing all the receivers, their reaction it tells you so much. Like there's a 1,000-word essay in that video in terms of seeing the expression on all his, not just his teammates' faces, but it's the receiving core especially, and how pleased they are to see him. That tells you a lot of stuff. And he has a few words for the guys too, which I thought was key. So, Makai, Polk back in double blue. I'm assuming he's going to be on the field this Monday. We don't know a lot. It's kind of weird. We're recording this Thursday night. There's only been one practice so far this week, and it was kind of a light one. A lot of guys being held out like they often are on day one at this stage of the season. Guys like Tavares that we've seen held out with hip injury, like a lot of guys like that. So it's tough to say at this point what exactly the starting lineup's going to look like, what exactly the dress roster is going to look like on Monday, but we'll do our best to guide you through it. The other big signing Toronto made was nose tackle Joe Wallace. I want to tell you a little bit about him. So Joe Wallace was potentially the most impactful defensive player in the UFL this past season. He's played the last few years with the DC Defenders. He was a Sam Houston State guy. I watched 2 games on film of his. I went back to a college game and then watched him in the championship game for the Defenders. He's disruptive. There's no question. And I think anyone that's covered the UFL immediately was excited to talk about Joe Wallace and all the stuff that he can do. There's no question about his backfield penetration. He takes a lot of manpower to slow down. Not the best tackler in the world. There are some flaws to his game, and I want to be cautious with my optimism here because I think on tape he looks really good. I'm worried he might be a far better 4-down player than 3-down player. We'll see how often he's able to be on the field, and we'll see what the bigger field does to him and does to his game, and what his conditioning is like and so forth. I always get nervous about guys of that size. He's shorter for a D tackle. He's got real mass to him, and there's some real positives about that. I actually like the lack of height. I think that plays well in terms of pad level and getting under guys, and he really does drive a lineman back, and he can take on double teams. He's got good hands, got great strength, great power. But I do get a little nervous until I see them on a CFL field, just to maybe just pump the brakes a little bit on getting too excited about Joe Wallace. But either way, even at his worst, he is a floor raiser and a ceiling raiser. He's immediately one of the best run stoppers on that defensive line for the Toronto Argonauts, and an upgrade at that positional group, no question. JB, what do you make of Joe Wallace?
I'm excited for him. He's huge. He's a space eater. He's going to draw doubles. You'll have to double him. I agree with you. He's a little bit built for the American game in terms of the size of field. He's not going to go chase guys down, but he's very athletic. He's got a pretty good first step. He's going to be an obstacle to push. One of the issues with the D-line is occasionally it's really been on roller skates, and opposing offensive lines are able to reset the line of scrimmage 4 yards back. And whatever else, he is not going to get pushed 4 yards back.
No.
I think it's a nice addition to roll in to the rotation. I'm excited to see him.
Yeah, me too. And we'll see what they do with him, but I imagine he's going to be rotational in the middle. You try and get him on the center as much as you can, knowing that it's going to pull another guard with him, because there's no center in the league that's going to deal one-on-one with Joe Wallace, except for potentially Peter Nicastro, and he's never going to have to go up against Joe except in practice. So that means it's going to create opportunities for linebackers. Anytime you can keep 2 O-linemen busy, that makes a linebacker's job a lot easier, both in blitz packages and in defending the run. So, I'm excited to see what he can do for sure.
He's not quite as athletic as Brinkman is or was. A little heavier, but more athletic than you might expect when you look at some of his film. He does have pretty quick feet. He is able to shoot gaps and swim. So, it's a nice pickup.
It is, and for again, sure.
I love when they get guys who haven't, been passed around the league.
Yeah. But like you brought up Brinkman. Remember how excited, like that's a slightly different reaction. Like when we saw Brinkman for the first time on film, we were immediately we're like, who is this guy?
His first step was for an inside guy. His first step was elite.
And we're not seeing that, but they're different. They're different players, and like you said, he's going to take up space, and you're not going to be able to shut games down running up the middle the way that we've seen teams do on Toronto at times this season.
And it's great for the linebackers too.
Yeah.
That's one of those things when defensive linemen are able to be handled one-on-one, or when they're getting reset, it makes it really hard to play linebacker because you're not looking at gaps, you're just looking at like chaos.
Yeah, guards climbing to you immediately and stuff, and that is not going to happen on his side of the field for sure. Then next guy I want to talk about, Max Duggan. This is a pretty interesting signing because of how high profile he is. So Max Duggan, you might remember those good TCU teams from a few years ago. Max Duggan was the quarterback of that 2021, 2022. Was that 21, 22 or 22, 23? It was the Caleb Williams year when Caleb Williams won the Heisman. Max Duggan was the runner-up. Dual threat quarterback. He's got a good arm. He's a little undersized, but again, I don't really care about that too much in the CFL. He can move. Very mobile guy. He is dual threat in the sense that he can attack you with his feet. He can pick up those first downs. You do design running plays for a quarterback like that as well, not just scrambling and picking up yardage. So he has got that kind of speed that...
he was drafted.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, he's...
right off the bat, like if you're drafted, even at late, like if you're drafted, your athleticism is off the charts.
Yeah, no, for sure. And, he's, I think a guy that you really want to take a look at if you can. Hopefully the Argos are in a few games where they're running away with it in the fourth down the stretch. And hopefully it's not the other way around and that they're in games that don't matter anymore and you get guys like Max Duggan in. But it would be nice to see what a quarterback like that can do. And we'll talk about the significance of that in a little bit. I just want to first talk about Dre Doiron, the fourth signing, offensive lineman out of Kansas. He was a BC Lions draft pick this year, was released and then picked up by Saskatchewan and then made available again. He was, I think I had him graded as my seventh highest lineman in this year's draft, which isn't, we're not talking about round 1 or 2 kind of guy. But I think anytime you can bring another Canadian O lineman in, you take a look. I think those guys are so valuable, especially on a team like Toronto where you're dressing 4 guys along that offensive line. You want to see what he can do. He's got that pedigree, playing at Kansas and has some really good stuff on tape. He doesn't overwhelm you, but he doesn't do a lot wrong either. And so there's something to like in that. So I think, take a look and see what you get out of Doiron. Before we go into some of the other transactions, just while we're on that topic, a few guys that Toronto has drafted that we've kind of been keeping an eye on down south, I wanted to update you on. So you referenced Ralph Hawley earlier. He was signed by the Cleveland Browns in the offseason. There was a moment of excitement for Argos fans, I guess, when he was released, but he was almost immediately put on Cleveland's practice roster. So that takes him out. In my mind, that takes him out this season entirely. Jared Wayne, once again, signed to the Houston Texans practice roster, another Argo draft pick, second rounder. And then Buffalo just yesterday, no, it would have been on cutdown day, released Toronto's second round pick from this year, Paris Shand, a really interesting defensive lineman from LSU that a lot of people were really high on. And he is not, at this, as we speak right now, has not signed to any practice roster. So of those 3 guys, I think Paris Shand is the one guy that you do want to keep your eye on. I think you probably write off Hawley and Wayne for this year, but there's a possibility there with Shand being released from Buffalo. So we'll see if that turns into anything. In terms of more action, Mark Milton traded to Ottawa for a 7th rounder in 2026. JB, what do you make of this? Because 7th rounder, that's not a lot in return. To me, that sort of says basically he was probably the next up to be released with bringing in some of these new guys. And they're like, look, let's see if we can get something out of him. Because you don't like trading players to division rivals, ideally. I imagine that this is just a scenario. It's not like they're saying, hey, we need a 7th rounder next year, or who can we trade to get one? I think this is just, we're looking to move on from Mark Milton. He was a healthy scratch. They had guys in there playing well, and they needed to make roster space for some of these guys that they've brought in. And probably Ottawa with Coach Fields there is like, yeah, I'll take a look at what Mark Milton can do. He loves that speed. He suits the Fields defense, I think, quite well. So that's, I imagine, how this all went down.
Makes sense. If you just cut, I'm sure they weren't anxious to see him in Hamilton on Labor Day. So you send him to Ottawa. That's the safest place to send him. So that makes sense to me. He was. I liked Milton. I thought that he had moments where he played really well. He played better last year than this year. They're looking to turn over that secondary, so it makes sense that they were able to kind of choose where he went rather than just cutting him.
And then 2 quarterbacks have been added to Toronto's negotiation list, which I love. If you haven't gotten into that, it's worth taking a look at. You can find it on CFL.ca. Look at every team's neg list. It moves a lot. Like every day, there are guys put on that come off. It is a wire that is in constant motion. But if you're especially if you follow U.S. college ball, I find that a really fascinating look. And you're bored one day, you're sitting at the dentist office. Take a look at some of these guys that Toronto's got on their neg list, because some of them are pretty fascinating. So definitely worth your while. 2 guys that they added this week, both quarterbacks, former Arizona Cardinal Clayton Tune and former New England Patriot Bailey Zappe. Zappe was very prolific in college. He threw like 70 touchdown passes or something absurd in his senior season. You can talk more about Zappe being a New England Patriots guy, JB.
I can indeed. From our illustrious 2020s. He looked like a guy's going to kick around the league for another 10 years as a practice squad backup guy. Pretty smart. Is he better than Nathan Rourke? No, I don't think so. I think that's madness that Rourke is not in the league as a backup. But as I would imagine, Zappe is not coming anytime soon. I would think that he will practice squad for at least a couple more years.
Yeah, coaches seem to like him, so that's always it's always a fear. And he's got those great college numbers that also make it easier to pick up a guy like that. But yeah, I agree with you. I don't understand some of the moves made in the NFL pro ranks. And then to even things out, 2 players released, Jordan Williams, defensive tackle, and fullback Will Gabriel, who was really only in for about a week. That one is not as surprising. I think they just wanted to kick the tires. Jordan Williams may be a little bit surprising. He was a contributor, but again, if you're bringing in a guy like Wallace, you have to make room in that positional group. And he was the player that made the most sense coming off a game where he was a healthy scratch. You surprised to see Jordan Williams go, or is that just makes sense to you too?
No, not really. I thought he was fine. It doesn't strike me as shocking that they would let him go. He didn't. He would make a nice play now and again, but he certainly wasn't somebody who flashed on the defense a lot, and didn't really have a specific skill set that he was great at. So it makes sense to me that he would be in the bottom 4 or 5 guys on the roster.
He will be remembered for that long fumble return touchdown. That was a highlight reel play. Cam Judge punching the ball loose, and who picks it up? But one of your defensive linemen who takes it the entire distance, like 80 yards or whatever it was, for the score. That'll always be how Toronto Argonauts fans remember him. JB, some chatter on social media this week, and I thought we'd probably be best talking about it a little bit. Is there cause for concern in all the quarterback movement that there's been this week for Toronto? So what I mean by that is the high-profile signing in Max Duggan, who was the Heisman runner-up, 2 known NFL quarterbacks being added to the neg list. I think fans seem to be worried. They're like, well, does this mean something? Does this mean something's wrong with Chad Kelly? He's going somewhere. I don't interpret it that way. How do you see these 3 moves together? Are they correlated to anything?
I don't think so. The team's always churning the practice squad, bottom of the roster, looking for new talent. I think that just makes sense. None of these, I don't think anybody there looks like a potential starter. Nobody has the resume to potentially, even be a likely backup. So I don't think so. I don't feel like I've said before. I don't feel that we're going to see Chad this year. But these are not shots across the bow. You would need to find somebody with a more impressive resume. These seem to be more like potential number threes.
Yeah, I read it that way too. Like to me, what this says is I think they're more concerned about. To me, it reads like they're more concerned about Horn and Daggy. Like that's what I saw. Is like, yeah, I don't know if these guys are our best two and three at the moment.
Yeah, I mean they clearly are not enamored with their two and three at the moment. I would say like they don't seem to be options for them at all. So it makes sense that they might be looking to turn that over.
And I think they're hoping Max Duggan can do that. I think, honestly, Max Duggan, I do think could be a player. I don't think Bailey Zappe, like you
he's
said,
really fast.
Yeah, no, he can move. He's got a good arm. He played in a lot of pressure in some big moment games and found a way to thrive in them and overcome some odds too, playing at TCU. Horned Frogs is also one of the best names in college football. I don't think Bailey Zappe's coming to the CFL. Clayton Toon maybe, but I'm not as excited about him as I am about Duggan. So I think this is exactly that. They're looking for some depth in the QB room. Maybe Max Duggan flashes and can be a guy that you take a look at more closely in camp next season as you look to move him up the depth chart a little bit. This is a good time for us to do Pick 6 right now. Pick 6, our Pick 6 winner this week. So first of all, Pick 6 is brought to you by Something in the Water Brewing. This is a contest we have every week where we're looking to give away a 6-pack of beer from Something in the Water. I prompt you for your questions. You can find me on Twitter at Ben_Grant or on Blue Sky at Coach Ben Grant. And the question that we answer on the podcast, the asker, I haven't phrased this well at all. The asker of that question gets the 6-pack of beer from Something in the Water. We had a lot of questions that were very similar. I think 5 different questions that were about the same kind of thing. So I ended up doing random number generation. And our winner this week is Jerry Frank G. This was off of Blue Sky. And he asked, how do you see the receiver juggling act playing out? And so what that means is like we talked about this before, like the Argos started the season with 3 Canadians as receivers. And then it became 2 and has stayed at 2 for the last few games with basically Unger and then Matal and then Brissett will come in at times as well. And then with Coxie being out, they sort of went back to that 3 number with Brissett playing the slot on the boundary side. If everybody was healthy, if Coxie is back, and if now Makai Polk joining the team, you don't want to take away Herslow because he's probably the hottest player in the CFL right now. So Davaris, Makai, Coxie, Herslow, that's 4 Americans leaving only 1 spot, which would have to be Matal probably. JB, do you think that that's a way they can go? Because you can find a way to do that. The way you do it is you have a designated American and then you basically juggle around 25 snaps with those 4 Americans on the field at once. Or do you think it's easier to go another route? I don't think there's any other possibility on offense, but defensively, if you felt we were close enough to having a Canadian on the defensive line, obviously they've got one at Will linebacker already. Is there a spot in the secondary that you feel comfortable you can bring in Jonathan Edouard, Tyshawn Blackburn, or do you think it's easiest to go with the designated American as a receiver when everybody's healthy?
Probably. I don't think they've really found anybody that you would want to plug in defensively. So I don't think that's the plan. I don't think they've had a lot of success finding a Canadian that they can roll in consistently. I don't know how many games they want to play with the starting guys and then how much they play and whether the league looks into that. But I don't think so.
I I think that I would have more confidence about it if they hadn't tried it yet, but they've tried it and they went away from it. So they had Jonathan Edwards starting at corner, and then the very next week they start Delonte Hood, who played really well actually. And then they had Tyshawn Blackburn playing Sam, and then they went out and signed Brandon Dozier. So like they're clearly not feeling like those guys are number one options. So it's the only reason I would think that they won't go
No,
that
that
route.
exactly. Well, that's what. Yeah, no, exactly. I feel the same. And like I think Edward in the running game has been an issue.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's like Delonte Hood, I can't say enough good things about him. I came away from the game very impressed with Hood. When I went and rewatched, I was even more impressed than I was watching him live for his first CFL game. And let's put that into context. I'm not saying he's set to be an all-star or anything like that. But for his first CFL game, knowing that teams are going to try and pick on him, they really weren't able to. They didn't even really go at him because there just wasn't anything there. I thought he looked very good in coverage. I thought he came up fairly well on run support. Didn't get lost at any point. I didn't see any busts out of him. There was one play that could have been his fault, but it's hard to tell. I can't exactly tell whose responsibility was whose, but all in all, I thought he played a very good game, and especially considering that was his first start at corner. So I feel like he's the plan going forward. It would be weird now to take him out and try to put Edouard back in. But you could if you needed to. If you absolutely needed to find a spot, you didn't want to go the designated American route, you could. But then I think you're also losing something in taking Ungerer off the field. I think you want Brissett out there as well. And if you got those three Canadians really playing one spot or 1.5 spots, I think that it's not ideal. But you certainly prefer 1.5 spots over one. All right. Thanks for your question, Jerry Frank G. You can pick up your 6-pack of beer from Something in the Water Brewing. And if you want to be like Jerry and win your own 6-pack, look for the prompt next week when we run Pick 6. It is time for our game preview, JB. Labor Day, 2:30 p.m. kickoff in Hamilton. I thought to express maybe a little bit of theater, JB, a little bit of creativity, in order to express the significance of this game. Listeners, I want you to imagine the game has just happened and you're no longer listening to the pregame walkthrough in preparation for the Labor Day Classic. You're now tuning in to the X's and Argos post-game reaction podcast. We'll go a little intro for one where everything went well and a little intro for one where everything went poorly. And you'll see what vastly different places you are in. All right, JB, you ready for some theater here?
Yeah.
All right, let's do it. Here we go. Welcome to the X's and Argos post-game reaction podcast brought to you by Something in the Water Brewing. Another amazing win for the Toronto Argonauts. They find ways to get it done for the second week in a row, back-to-back now, beating the BC Lions, walking in to Hamilton Stadium and taking down the Ticats in crunch time as well. JB, how great was it to see this team come through in a place where they've so often failed this season, those dying minutes, and this time it worked out for them?
Yeah, terrific to beat Hamilton in Hamilton. Changes the whole season. The Argos are now a legitimate Grey Cup contender.
Yeah.
It was amazing to see them put this together. They're really building on that BC win. 3 turnovers really took the day.
And 2 points now shy of a playoff spot. That's just 1 win away from catching the BC Lions, all alone now in 3rd in the East. All right, let's try the reverse scenario and just imagine how you feel after that win, Argos fans. And now we'll go into a little bit of darkness here. There we go. Welcome to the X's and Argos podcast brought to you by Something in the Water Brewing. That was a tough one, JB. Yet another heartbreaking loss. Toronto couldn't get it done. Again, just falling short in the dying stages of this game. And they fall to the Hamilton Tiger Cats, now moved to 3-9. Is the season over at this point, JB?
The season is most definitely over. This was a must-win. Despite me not being able to say that, I believe trademark-wise. It was a game they had to take, and they weren't able to get it done. And now they are into full evaluation for the 2026 season.
That was pretty dark. That is not a healthy exercise. I don't feel like we should do this ever again,
No,
JB.
I didn't feel like we should do it this time either, for the record.
So those are the stakes. So 2:30 in Hamilton. This is not the ideal time to be playing the Tiger Cats. They're coming off a bye after they got whipped in Saskatchewan. This is not like they're angry. They've been sitting at home. They've been working out, training, trying to let those days go by as fast as you can so they can get back out there and show that they are not the team that got embarrassed in Saskatchewan. The only saving grace for Toronto is I think they've got their own things to be excited about. I think bringing in Makai Polk this week, I really think offsets some of that. And there's a little bit of spark and fire that the Argos are going to have, aside from knowing that they're playing for their lives, their playoff lives on Labor Day. I do feel like that might offset some of the anger that Hamilton's coming into this game with, because they bring it against Toronto. You remember last game against Hamilton where it just looked like they had a different score to settle or something like that.
Absolutely. It's going to be an incredible measuring test for the Argos in terms of the physicality. Hamilton, you said it perfectly. They are going to come out like, uncaged, wild lions. They are been yelled at. They've watched film. They've had coaches point out their mistakes. They've had, people consider them, frauds. They can't win out west. Are they for real? They are going to come out with a physicality in that first quarter to that home crowd that the Argos are going to have to meet. It's going to need to be a Wynton McManus game from everybody.
Just for the record, you were looking for an analogy there for a wild animal, and you chose lions over tigers for the Ticats?
Well, I mean, the BC Lions are named after mountains.
That's true.
So
that's true. That's fair.
I thought Tigers was a bit on the nose.
Let's get into the injury report. What's kind of a bit of a reversal is that Hamilton's injury report is full. Now, there's a lot of guys that are expected back. Again, it is day one of practice, this being an odd week with a Monday game. So there are a lot of guys on here that are getting rest days, but they seem, despite all the names on here, are for the most part pretty healthy right now. Johnny Augustine practiced full with that hip injury. Quinn Barrow full with ankle. Luke Brubaker didn't practice with the shoulder injury. Some of these guys are coming off the 6 game or 2, so some of these guys are just kind of taking up space at the moment on this injury list. Nate Dumoulin-Duguay with the knee injury. Some of the guys that I think are impactful here: Stavros Katsantonis, the calf injury, did not practice. We'll monitor that. Milanovic Leacher with the hamstring injury didn't practice. Jamal Peters did. You can bet he's not going to miss this one. Tyler Ternowski practiced full with that shoulder injury. Isaiah Wooden did not practice with the shoulder injury, and Lawrence Woods III with the chest injury did not practice as well. So they've got a lot of names on that list, but I think it's a little bit misleading. I think most of their key guys are going to go, and I think you should check in Friday, Saturday to see who's just being held out for a day of rest. And I would advise that for the Argos too, because as I go down this list, you got DeVaris Daniels, didn't practice with a hip injury. That's not unusual for him for day one of practice in a week. Sage Dockstader is a concern. He didn't practice today with a head injury, and so I think we do have to monitor that. Teodric Hansen practiced full. He's coming back from that elbow injury. I would expect him to be able to go. Ryan Hunter practiced full. That is a huge surprise. I did not think we would see Ryan Hunter this soon, but him practicing full with that shoulder injury after being hit by a car is a real positive. Chad Kelly limited with the leg injury. Again, his status hasn't changed. Deontay McMahon didn't practice with the ankle injury. Derek Sluka did not practice with an ankle injury. Anthony Vandal didn't practice with an ankle injury. He got pretty banged up in last game. Without knowing anything, just based on seeing last week, I would expect Anthony Vandal will actually suit up and play. I think that's what's going to happen here, but we'll have to wait and see. And then I thought a really good news piece from this injury report, which we never see, especially this season. Mayan Williams practiced full today. He's coming back from that brutal head injury that he suffered in week 4 in Ottawa. Great to see him practicing full. We'll see how he responds from that. But maybe we see him back this week. If Mac Mahon's ankle is too banged up for him to go, we know Spencer Brown did some really impressive things last week. Spencer Brown, Mine Williams backfield, if it's needed, I'm all for it. I don't want to see Mac Mahon not out there. I think he's a great back, but I think Williams and Spencer Brown give you a little thunder and lightning combo that would be fun to watch if he's ready to go. It's time for OCDC. For OCDC, we'll start off with you, JB. You are the defensive coordinator of the Hamilton Tiger Cats. What is your plan? How do you slow down this 52-point getting, 443-yard throwing, Nick Arbuckle-led Toronto Argonauts offense? Do you just wave the white flag from the get-go, or do you have a plan, JB?
It is perplexing to me that teams do not sell out more on the pass. Toronto cannot run the ball. So I for me, like defensively, I have to take away the ability for Toronto to throw the deep ball. I just can't let them throw passes over 25 yards. It is something that they've been very good at. The wide receiver crew is really talented. Herzlow has jumped up. And so if Herzlow is going to be good, my God, that wide receiver group is stacked. So it's not a surprise that they are really good at passing the ball. It's not fluke. It is the best wide receiver group in the CFL, easily, in my opinion. They have 5 guys who can be unstoppable. Now they're going to roll in Herzlow and Polk. So from my perspective, you look at Hamilton. They're not great at pass rushing. Toronto's not great at defending the pass rush. I think you just have to go light box, and you have got to play. You've got to play deep coverage with man underneath. I think you just have to really force Toronto to run the ball. You have to dare them to run the ball as much as possible. Like I think you're doing a mixture of like a lot of deep coverage, so you're taking away that pass and obvious passing downs. Whether you're playing like cover 3 with man under, and you're really going like box. Like I would put, I don't know, 5 guys in the box. Just dare Toronto to run it, and if they're able to, then you can adjust. But for me, that's it. I'm putting 5 guys in the box and taking away that pass and just crowding the middle of that field and just having defensive backs everywhere. And so when they look downfield, they see they got a guy on top, and then there's a free guy reading the quarterback's eyes. And that's how I would attack it. I would see if Toronto can run with an almost abandoned box and go from there. But I absolutely would never put anybody without over the top coverage. I would not put people one-on-one. I would not ever play the run. I would be that radical, I guess, to put such a light box and just essentially dedicate 7 DBs to what we're doing here and have those linebackers fan out.
Who would have thought that we would be sitting here in the week 13 season, or week 13 of the season, wondering how you stop Nick Arbuckle's deep ball? Like that.
Yeah,
that was not a story I thought we'd be talking about.
Unbelievable, but he really, like full credit to him. I think we've given him his flowers, I think, all season, but full credit to him. He absolutely is punishing teams with it. And it just feels like teams are like, no, I don't think so. And,
I know, but you can't do
right?
that. Like after, he just keeps throwing for 400 yards.
I know. I don't. I mean, look. Granted, it doesn't always translate into a win, or in fact, rarely.
Yeah.
But Yeah, I would just, you know, put seven DBs out there and a five-man box, and let's see what Toronto can do.
Switching to the other side of the ball for Hamilton offensively, if I'm the Hamilton OC, I think I want to test Delonte Hood again. Now that I got a week of film on him, you had a chance to look at him, and I think he didn't have to go up against a guy like Kenny Lawler, and I think I want to try and isolate those two guys. So you're going to move Lawler around. I actually want him to the field in trips packages, and I think you can try and attack Hood that way with some concepts that maybe get him distracted by something crossing in front. Lawler's deep, or he loses track of him, isn't aware of his spacing, can't communicate and pass it off, and Lawler has some opportunities there. So I think that's the first part of my plan. I also want to try isolating Lawler to the boundary, just have him on his own. And this is something a lot of teams do with their best receiver, and you're just playing math. And so what I do here is I want to put Lawler to the boundary side on his own. I have everyone else over to the field side and see how Toronto responds defensively. They're going to have Franklin over there on Lawler. Does Bratton stay too? And if Bratton stays, then you go to the other side where you've got a numbers advantage. You can even run like all hooks. It doesn't really matter. You've got more guys than they've got defenders over there. But if they just leave Lawler and Franklin one-on-one, then I think you take a shot. You say, Lawler, we believe the best receiver in the league is going to make a play over Benji Franklin. So I think that's got to be Hamilton's plan in terms of passing. In terms of the run game, I really want to spread Toronto out. Partly because I think they could actually run to the outside. I think that's another way to test both Franklin and Hood a little bit in the run support. But I also want to spread out Toronto's defensive line. I really want a safe, wide pocket for Beaulieu and Mitchell to operate in. And the more we can strain those contain guys and really force them to widen out in order to do their job properly, I think the more that helps Beau settling in at the pass game. Because he didn't look very comfortable in Saskatchewan. He didn't look like he had a lot of time. And I don't want that to get to him again in back-to-back weeks. So that's my plan offensively for the Tiger Cats. JB, let's switch over to the good guys. You are Toronto's DC. What are you doing to stop Beau and the Ticats, who scored 9 points against the Riders a couple weeks ago?
Well, Hamilton is pretty good at home, and Lawler is a problem. I think you absolutely have to double Lawler in obvious passing downs. You just have to. You have to put a guy on him and then a guy over the top. You can't. I wouldn't double him the whole game, but I would double him a lot. Hamilton's wide receiver crew is not so deep that you can't. I don't think you can't legitimately make a case for just doubling Lawler in every play, and seeing who else. I mean, unfortunately, sometimes White eats us, but yeah, I would double Lawler a lot. I don't think there's much point to loading up on the pass rush against a veteran quarterback. It doesn't really work. I think you have to, similar to what Hamilton's going to do. Hamilton is similar to Toronto. They're a pass-first team. They're very good at passing. They're not very good at running. Not quite the discrepancy between the two, but they definitely rely on the pass. They're first in passing touchdowns. That's where their offense comes from. Lawler leads the league in touchdowns. You have to take care of Lawler, number one. So you cannot let him have more than 100 yards. If you lose, so be it. But if you lose and Lawler has 150 and 2 touchdowns, then everybody should take a long look. Because you just can't. You can't lose to a team when their best player eats you up. You have to game plan better than that. Pass first defense. I think you have to go a slightly lighter box, and try and control that run as best you can. But I'm not worried about what the running stats are. You have to take away those short and intermediate passes. Funnily enough, Hamilton's not great they're not a big explosive team in terms of the deep pass, but you just have to take away those mid-range passes. So you got to get, more defensive backs on the field in terms of fanning out and taking away those ins and the posts and prevent Hamilton from doing that. And the defensive line have to keep the quarterback in the pocket, and they can't let him get outside and start playing scramble football. Set the edge, force them to run routes and not play backyard football, which Bo Levi is very good at. You have to make guys run routes, defend routes, don't defend sandlot football, which is really hard to do, and I don't think the Argos are really built for it. So I think that's probably the basis of what I'm doing. Is I'm stepping back, but I think more importantly for Toronto is Hamilton's punt return and kick return are elite. They lead the league in both. They lead the league in starting position. That has, to me, that's the other primary focus. After Lawler, is you have to find a way to keep the punt return and the kick return below their normal averages. You can't let Hamilton constantly start with great field position, especially at home. It really helps them. It's a big special teams week. I think, that game was a little misleading because of all the turnovers against Saskatchewan. You have to control the special teams, have to play well for Toronto to win this game, much more than the defense has to, in my opinion. Hamilton's offense is good, but it is one-dimensional. So I think you can kind of keep that in check. Eyes are on, can they get that punt return game? Can they get that average a couple of yards below their average, just to stop Hamilton from feeling that confidence of starting on the 45 every time.
Switching over to Toronto's offense, I think it's important not to try and force it to Makai Polk. It's going to be tempting. You want to play with the new toy. I get that, but Hamilton's been reading the news too. Like they're going to be aware of that. I think you can use them similar to like what I said with Lawler. Like, how much attention are they paying to Polk? Is it excessive to a point where that's fine? Like, keep feeding Matala, keep feeding Herslow, get those guys going if they're going to pay a lot of attention to Makai Polk. So I think you sort of have to see how Hamilton responds to him. If they're just playing him straight up, then yeah, see what he can do. He was the most dynamic player, I thought, on the Toronto Argonauts offense last season. And that's including DeMonte Coxie, who is outstanding, one of the best receivers in the league. Devaris Daniels, the skilled veteran, and guys like Mittal that didn't even really get a look because of what Polk was able to do last season. He was barely involved in the offense, remember. So if they're just playing Makai straight up, certainly get the ball to him, but don't feel like you have to force it. In terms of the run game, it depends on whether or not Mayan Williams is going to play. And we're just basing it off of the one practice he had today where he went full. And I do think they want to be really cautious with bringing him back. And so I don't know if I really expect him to play in this game or not. If he is playing, it changes up my game plan a little bit. I'm kind of going into this right now thinking that we're seeing a lot of Spencer Brown. And he had a lot of rushing success in the late stages of last game. He showed some real quickness, some change of direction, some vision. And I think that you can take advantage of that a little bit. I want to run wide zones with Spencer Brown. And if you don't know the difference between wide zone and inside zone, it basically has a different aiming point for the running back. That's the easiest way to say it. I guess the Cole's Notes version of this is that, like, for a running back in inside zone, your aiming point is the play side guard. And then you're looking to cut it back in either the A or B gap. You're sort of reading A gap first, B gap second. For wide zone, your aiming point is the play side tackle. And sometimes it's even like an invisible tight end beside the tackle. And you're really trying to stretch it wide. And you're reading your gaps in reverse order, sort of C gap back to the inside, looking for your cutback. And wide zones put, in this case, Hamilton's linebackers in conflict. There's more space, there's more cutback options, there's big play potential. And if you got a running back with vision and patience and burst, like Spencer Brown seemed to show in that limited fashion last week, then I think you have to see if you've got something. So I want to see them come out really trying to stretch the field horizontally with Spencer Brown. Again, if it's Mayan Williams, we change that up and we go a little bit more conventional. But I just want to see if Spencer Brown can carry this out in the first quarter of a game instead of in a game that might have been out of hand late in the stages of that BC game. All right, JB, one thing this week. What is your one thing?
I looked at different things. Obviously at this point in the season, it gets a little harder to pick something to focus on. The things they're good at, they're good at. The things they're not, they're still not. For me, in terms of a one thing that would lead to a win, Hamilton does not turn the ball over a lot, but I think that was the key to Saskatchewan winning, and I think it'll be the key for calming that crowd down. That crowd on a Labor Day where they are better than the Argos and they can put a dagger in the Argos will be raucous, to say the least, to sort of end of summer Dionysian affair. So how do you calm that crowd down? You've got to get some fumbles. You've got to get a turnover to flip that. So for me, if the Argos can get more than 2 turnovers, that I would expect them to win the game.
I'm going to go with a similar kind of thing, which is I think you want to take the crowd out. It's so huge that Labor Day is not normal. It is weird that Toronto has to go in every year on Labor Day. I'm actually fine with it. I just want there to be a sort of reciprocal event. Like I want there to be an in-stone game where Hamilton has to come to Toronto. Maybe it's the C&E game every year where every C&E game Toronto has to host Hamilton. Whatever it is, like I like the tradition of Toronto playing in Labor Day in Hamilton. It just doesn't feel like there's an equivalent. So it's a little one-sided in that regard. So I think halftime lead. I think if you can get up going into half, suddenly Hamilton fans are asking questions. Did BC allow the sleeping giant to awake? Has Hamilton not really as good as their first place record would indicate? Is what they saw last week in Saskatchewan or 2 weeks ago in Saskatchewan more the real Hamilton? Like I think those are the questions you have to have those fans asking at halftime. And so you put down a good first half. I think Toronto is in a good position to win. I think the air is out of the building, and I think that is exactly the recipe for success. It is time for Put Me Down for 20. JB, we got to warn the good folks at home not to take us too seriously, and you are perhaps the poster boy for that, having lost now 4 fleece bets in a row. Some tight ones, though, last week. You had the Argos, but you had them winning 1 to 13 points. You had the Bombers, and you set your own line minus 14. They won by 13. You had a couple bad beats.
Ridiculous. Ridiculous is the only word I will use to describe that.
I, on the other hand, am rolling in fleeces with 240 golden fleeces from my original 200. I hit my Argos plus 146 bet, and I had the Ottawa Edmonton under for even money, so I'm at 240. You're at 175. It's certainly been a lot worse. You can get back into it with some aggressive plays this week. Let's go to you first, JB. What are you going to do with your 20 golden fleeces?
Well, for the Argos, getting a lot of juice on Labor Day. I'm going to take the Argos to win from 1 to 13 at plus 230.
Yeah, I actually have that one too, but it's too good to pass up on. I love that.
Yeah,
the juice you're getting on that.
Yeah, even though like I got kind of worked over with the spreads last week, I like that one. And then my second one, God help me, I'm gonna take the Elks winning in Calgary.
Yes,
I know there's very little statistical evidence to suggest that is a play, and in fact, the juice being offered suggests that this is definitely a public sucker bet. But I get the Elks plus 300. I think they're feeling themselves. I think Calgary might have a little letdown. The Elks would give anything to go in and ruin Calgary on Labor Day weekend. I think it's a real, there's like divisional games. This is a real divisional game, which are very different. You can't always look at the records when you have a true divisional game. So I'm taking your Elks to get it done.
Some of my favorite texts from you are like third quarter of an Elks game when you have an Elks wager. You're just raging at them and swearing that you'll never pick the Elks again for
that's true, but
another bet.
We'll see.
Once more into the breach.
Yeah.
So like I said, I've got that same Toronto bet. Toronto wins 1 to 13 points at plus 230. And then I went with a pretty exciting parlay, swinging for the fences. I am parlaying, so Edmonton plus 7.5 with Toronto plus 4.5 and the Winnipeg Saskatchewan under 51.5. That pays out plus 627, which would be a huge hit if that can hit. But it's, three team parlay is not a high percentage play. And like we said off the top, do not take our bets very seriously. We certainly don't. They are fictional. If you are betting on the football games, only ever bet the amount that you are happy to lose as the cost of entertainment. And on to Challenge Flag. You had a win, a much needed win last week, JB. You have now closed the gap. I am up 7-5 in Challenge Flag. If you're new to this segment, how it works is JB makes his picks every week and I throw my Challenge Flag on one of his picks. But I had no shot last week because JB, you were 4-0 last week, an undefeated week. You're back. So let's see if you can carry that momentum into week 13. First up, Winnipeg at Saskatchewan. It does not get easy for you in week 13.
I like Saskatchewan at home. I think that they really show me something. I think they've really kind of reached a gear. If we do another power ranking, I think they're probably pushing for the one again. I like Saskatchewan.
I think they're a clear one right now. Like the way they handled Hamilton. That was eye-opening. I think for the rest of the league, they were like, "Whoa, that's something." Toronto at Hamilton. What are you doing for the Labor Day Classic in Hamilton?
Yeah, I mean, I got to take Toronto. I think Toronto knows their whole season comes down to this game, and if they have any aspirations of being a playoff threat, they have to be able to win this. So I'm into it. Toronto.
And then Edmonton at Calgary. Are you taking your Elks?
No, there's only so much elking I'm going to do. I'm digging out. I have to play smart here. I'm digging out from a hole, so I'm gonna hedge like a pro here and take Calgary.
I don't like this position you put me in because I would have picked the same three. And this has happened that happened to me last week too, I think. I guess I'm going to take the Bombers. So I will throw my Challenge Flag on your Winnipeg-Saskatchewan game. I don't feel great about it, but I think I'm hoping that Saskatchewan is reading their press clippings right now. Everyone's talking about how great they are, how well they played. Actually, that was 2 weeks ago. That's not exactly happening. So maybe my psychology is wrong in this. I'm gonna have to talk myself into something different because they got schooled last week by Calgary. I'm forgetting about that game. Yeah, I don't know why I'm picking Winnipeg. maybe Winnipeg is looking at that Calgary film and they can finally figure out how to duplicate what the Stampeders seem to be the only team able to do to the Rough Riders. So that's how I'm going to justify it. But I don't love the pick. I am going to challenge Winnipeg. But yeah, I don't at all feel good about that. Any final thoughts before we wrap this one up, JB?
Oh, it's good to be back in the city. I'm excited to be around for post-game pods moving forward. I'm very hopeful that those post-game pods will be relevant and purposeful, which comes down to Monday.
Yeah, and it is nice. And from my part, I love that you get to go home and visit friends and family out east. But I've had enough of you getting stranded on islands during post-game pod time. So it'll be good to have you back for post-game reactions and everything else. And we'll catch up and watch some football together for sure. So that will just about do it for us on this pregame walkthrough episode of the X's and Argos podcast. Again, the Labor Day Classic, 2:30 p.m. Eastern, Toronto at Hamilton, Monday, September 1st. You can catch Mike Hogan and I on the radio broadcast on TSN 1050 if you want to sync your televisions or listen to us while you're in the stadium. That will just about do it for us. For JB, this is Ben Grant saying so long, and may all your pre-snap reads be good ones. I'll see ya.
Go, Toronto Argos, go, go, go. Pull together, fight the foe, foe.